I just wanted to welcome you to the Food for Thought Symposium, Chemicals and Allergens in the Food We Eat. We're very excited today. This is actually the largest audience we've ever had for one of these symposiums. And I think we probably hit upon a topic that many people are interested in.
So one of the questions that I started out with in my career now 15 years ago or so is, well, what happened in 2001 when the federal government disseminated these guidelines suggesting that women should limit their fish intake? They were hoping that women would just not eat the high mercury fish and then would just continue to eat the low mercury fish. But what happened is that we looked at a group of pregnant women, and once the guidelines came out, there was a sudden drop off in fish consumption, and then the slope started going down. We had concern that this guideline could have actually potentially resulted in net harm to public health, despite its good intentions. In our focus group work, one of the things that we thought is we'd create this message that was focused on, well, there are risks, there are benefits, but on balance, you still want to eat fish. And the women said, we have heard all about the risk. We know which 4 fish types not to eat. We have no idea what we actually should eat. And no one's telling us to eat fish. They're just telling us to avoid fish or maybe avoid certain types of fish. Encourage them to eat fish. We talked about mercury, but we also talked about the benefits of fish consumption and the evidence that, that mothers who eat more fish have babies with better cognitive development. And what we did is we actually gave them a specific list of fish types that they could eat and were encouraged to eat and that were all low in mercury.
Peanut allergy appears to have increased in prevalence, and we did a study that started in 1997 and had a final iteration in 2008. When we looked in 1997, it was 1 in 250 children being reported with a peanut allergy, and by the time we got to 2008, it was 1 in 70, so it had tripled, and that's over 1%. The immune system is the part of the body that helps us fight infection, but it's also the part of the body that causes things like allergy. It's an attack on the proteins in foods from our immune system, and then we get sick from that attack. So one of the theories is that we're living too cleanly, and that with less infection, with smaller families, without living on farms where you're exposed to natural germs, that our immune system is essentially dysregulated and looking for a fight. There's a snack called bamba in Israel that is often given to young children, and infants in Israel were ingesting about 7 grams a month of peanut protein compared to essentially 0 in the UK.
USDA Organic at the moment is really very helpful because there's 3 different levels, but you can read that, because the standards include non-GMO, no use of pesticides, no use of antibiotics. It's very important that we maintain those standards because if it becomes meaningless, then it won't help people make those choices and it won't influence practice. Yes, USDA Organic means non-GMO, and clearly organic diets and organic fruits and vegetables reduce your exposure. Some fruits and vegetables tend to have more pesticides than others, so you maybe spend your money on, let's say, imported berries as opposed to, in the dirty dozen, as opposed to like cantaloupe in the clean 15. So there's some ways of making those choices, and you can get cards and apps and other things for that. Some of the good things that might come out about it, like, say, golden rice, engineer rice that has vitamin A and help prevent blindness and things like that. But it turns out that really the biggest reason crops are engineered is to be resistant to herbicides and insecticides, the overwhelming majority. In 20 years, we've gone from almost none of our major row crops are things like corn, soy, cotton, things like that, to the overwhelming majority now are bioengineered. And they've been engineered to be resistant to primarily herbicides and insecticides. Again, using a naturally occurring gene in another organism, they can then not worry about manually weeding and other weed control, and they can just douse it in ever-increasing amounts of herbicides, like glyphosate. And the crop won't be bothered by it, but it gets glyphosate on it, and the environment gets much more glyphosate in it, and the weeds die until they become resistant.
In packaging, that's about 4,000 to 5,000. And into processed food, that's another couple thousand. Total's about 10,000 chemicals that the FDA or industry have approved to be used in food. I can't say how many are in there because the system's broken. We don't know how much is there. So who decides whether the chemicals are safe? FDA in the early 80s acknowledged that 90% of the additives that they looked at didn't have, and that's not even the flavors, of the ingredients in food had not had a robust study that they could rely on. A lot of it was professional judgment. And when you combine professional judgment and conflicts of interest, you've got real problems there. There is a group that you can look to, the Center for Science and the Public Interest, where they do rate ingredients. They rate them safe, caution, cut back, certain people should avoid, those are the allergens, and avoid. So ultimately, you make the decision with your purchasing power, and it shows. You've already seen it last year. Thank you.